Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's the first time you're visiting. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Hayley and I review fragrances. So as I already mentioned in the intro, today's video is going to be all about new fragrances in my collection that I'm absolutely loving right now. The majority of these are new releases, but not all of them. But before we get started on the content, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. It really helps my channel out and I would love to have you as part of this amazing fragrance community. So now that's out of the way, let's jump into the first fragrance. First up is the newest release from Hermetica, and this one is called Bloomtea. Now, if you watch my channel, you will know that I absolutely adore tea fragrances. So when I saw this one being teased out, I saw the nose and I was like, I think I'm gonna like this, but you can't always go off the nose. You have to try the fragrance, and this is a love. Of course, it's in this video, so of course it's a love. This is a fresh, aromatic tea fragrance that's got this almost herbal quality about it, but also some florals throughout, and it has insane longevity. When you spray this on the skin, you can see how much oil concentration it has, and it really does last all day. And for this type of scent profile, normally I wouldn't expect that, but I was so pleasantly surprised by the longevity of this. Anyway, let's move on to what this smells like. So what I get in the opening is a blast of lavender and a blast of green tea. And that is why it has that slight herbal quality, because the lavender gives off a really fresh, cooling effect to the overall composition. This will be perfect in the spring and the summer. The green tea is definitely prominent. You also have some clary sage in here, which adds to that kind of herbal quality and also gives it a cooling effect as well. There is some rose in here, and there's tonka bean. And if you have smelt Tonkandy by Hermetica, it kind of has a little bit of that DNA in the dry down with that sweet tonka bean note that almost pulls a little bit vanillic too. So this does have a sweetness in the dry down, but the opening is incredibly fresh. I think if you're someone that likes tea fragrances, this is one I would definitely highly recommend sampling. You can pick this up at Twisted Lily. Twisted Lily kindly sent this bottle over for review, and it's now available at Twisted Lily, but they do also sell samples, so I would highly recommend getting a sample of this one. But yeah, it's a very fresh, herbal take on a tea fragrance. You definitely pick up the lavender, you definitely pick up the clary sage, you then have a lot of green tea, there's rose, there's tonka bean, and then there's also musk in the dry down. I think this is such a fantastic fragrance. It's unique to my collection too. I don't have a tea fragrance that smells quite like this. These are also refillable too. See, when I'm smelling it from the cap, I'm picking up a lot of that rose, and it's a very sweet, almost vanillic, musky rose. But on the skin, the tea definitely comes through. So this is definitely a new launch that I think is fantastic. It was a love at first sniff for me. I've worn this a couple of times already, and I know I'm going to be wearing this one a lot in the spring, summer. So I'm very grateful to Twisted Lily for sending this one over to me. It is definitely a smash hit for me. The next fragrance is Melon Kiss by Navitus. Yes, this is the newest collaboration between Navitus and Gabby from Gabby Loves Perfumes. And this is her third fragrance with Navitus. And her other two have been smash hits for me. She really gets it right with gourmands, in my opinion. She is a gourmand lover. If you watch her channel, she absolutely adores that category. And Melon Kiss, this is so refreshing. They don't have anything like this in the Navitus collection, and it is the perfect time of year to launch this. Now, what does this smell like? Okay, it has melon in it if you haven't already guessed by the name, and I think this packaging is so beautiful. It reminds me of a honeydew melon. I've worn this a couple of times already. It definitely smells like honeydew melon in the opening. Really, really sweet and juicy. Smells like a fresh honeydew melon that's nice and ripe right under my nose. That is exactly what I'm getting from the opening. But it then starts to take a little bit of a different direction as it starts to dry down, and you get quite a lot of vanilla in the dry down. There's also coconut in here. Now, I reviewed a fragrance recently from Room 1015 called Wave Child, which is watermelon and coconut. Now this is melon and coconut, and they give off a similar vibe. They don't smell the same because the notes are different. And I would say Wave Child is a little bit more floral and sweeter, but they're in that same kind of category. And I'm so excited for this new release because I do not have a good melon fragrance, specifically honeydew melon. I found my new favorite watermelon fragrance with Wave Child, and now I have found my favorite melon fragrance. It has this kind of woody dry down too. It's a little bit musky. You do pick up the coconut. I wouldn't say it's any kind of beachy coconut at all. It just adds this milky quality in the composition. Really, really adds to that juiciness. But the three notes I would say that I get from this: honeydew melon, coconut milk, and then vanilla. Those are the three most prominent notes to my nose at the very least. You do get a slight musky woodiness in the dry down. At least that's what I get anyway on my skin. But this is such a fantastic new release from Gabby and Navitus. I will review this one in more detail. I will probably pop up a review over on my TikTok too. But I have been thoroughly enjoying this already. Like I've said, I've worn it already. Now the longevity isn't quite as strong at this stage as her other two fragrances. However, one thing I know about Navitus is their fragrances get better if you let them sit for a while. So I think the longevity on this will get a little bit stronger over the next 2 weeks. It still lasts a good 6 hours on my skin, but I think that will improve over the next couple of weeks, maybe the next month or so. But if you are looking for a fragrance that smells like honeydew melon and vanilla, you're going to want to try Melon Kiss. So well done, Gabby, on this newest collaboration. You've smashed it again. Not that I expected anything different, but I really, really love this new launch. Whilst I'm here, I just want to announce that Navitus are actually launching body mists. So I have, I think, 4 of them here, which I am going to review in a different video. This one is Ambrosia Imperial. And basically they are all over body mists, body sprays, but they have a really high concentration, which means the longevity is really good. And these really do project. I am going to talk about them in a little bit more detail, but I wanted to put kind of a little bit of a teaser in this video just to let you know that these are coming soon. And these really impressed me in terms of performance for a body mist. And I just want to show you the sprayer because the mist is incredibly fine. I don't know if you saw that, but that was super impressive to me anyway. So yeah, I will talk about these in the future, but I thought I would just show you what is coming. Next up is BonBon Pop from the House of Oud. I sampled this over a year ago. The House of Oud launched 3 fragrances in the Crazy collection: BonBon Pop, Wabi Sabi, and Gambling. I originally decided to add Wabi Sabi to my collection first because I felt like it was super unique and quite fresh. Plus it had a wasabi note, which I don't have anything in my collection that has a wasabi note. Anyway, we're talking about BonBon Pop. This was a love at first sniff even back then, and I don't know what's taken me so long to add this one to my collection, but I finally have it and I love it. I loved it from the start anyway. But I didn't know if I needed it in my collection because I do have a couple of fragrances that smell a little bit similar, at least to me. Now, BonBon Pop is a quite prominent brown sugar vanilla-y fragrance. It definitely isn't marketed as a vanilla fragrance, but that is the vibe I personally get from it. It's definitely gourmand. You have coconut, you have peach, you have brown sugar. There's some musk in here too. And the first time I tried this, it really reminded me of Vanilla Royale by Kayali. That has changed slightly, but there is a little bit of that kind of DNA in the dry down because this has quite a big dose of patchouli in the dry down mixed in with that brown sugar. It kind of gives a similar vibe to Vanilla Royale, but then this has that kind of peachy coconut opening, which makes it a little bit more similar to Gossip Night by Gritty. It's like those 2 fragrances had a baby and they would create BonBon Pop, at least to me anyway. So if you like Vanilla Royale, and if you like Gossip Night by Gritty, this is what this kind of smells like to me. You definitely get the juicy peach in the opening. And I get a lot of patchouli straight from the opening too. So I feel like you need to like patchouli, but it's very sweet. And I will say this is gourmand to my nose. I get a lot of brown sugar. I pick up a kind of vanilla-y vibe too. You get that coconut. It's got some amber in here too. It's a really interesting fragrance, very beautiful. This is strong. On my skin at the very least, it projects incredibly, leaves the most insane scent trail, but the longevity is what makes this stand out for me. Gossip Night has pretty good longevity. Vanilla Royale too, so that kind of makes sense, and I think it's because of the patchouli grounding it in the base. I know so many of you have already tried this one. I know it's widely loved and it's been reviewed quite a lot. I do regret not adding it into my collection sooner, but I wanted to add Wabi Sabi first. As I already mentioned, I felt like it was just a little bit more unique to my collection, but I'm glad to have this now. I'm trying not to get too many fragrances that have similar DNAs because it becomes a little bit wasteful. I'm going to stop rambling. I will do a more detailed review on this one in the future, but yeah. Glad I finally have BonBon Pop by the House of Oud in my collection. Next up is the newest release from K, and this one is Orchid K. This fragrance is incredibly beautiful. It has a really interesting note breakdown. It has a marshmallow note, but it's a very grown-up marshmallow note. It's not overly sweet. It's definitely adult, as I've just said. Blended perfectly with really beautiful florals, creamy magnolia. It's got orchid in here. There's a petitgrain note, but the thing that really grounds this and gives it a unique twist is the smooth yet prominent sequoia note. Gives it a deep, dark woodiness, but then there's ambroxan. You've also got vanilla. I really didn't expect this to have the performance that it does based on the notes alone, but this one lasts all day and projects incredibly far. On my skin it does at the very least. It really shocked me. I did 2 sprays, it lasted all day, and I just kept getting wafts everywhere I went. I've only worn this twice so far, but I think it's going to be popular. There's a few different fragrances within the K collection that are standouts to me. I really love Musk K and I really love Camila K, plus Lettre de Pushka too. But this one, I think so many of you are going to love. It's got a likable DNA, yet at the same time a unique twist to it, because marshmallow and florals are not necessarily unique, but there's a twist to those notes that just give it a slight edge. And that sequoia note, as I mentioned, is so incredibly beautiful. Deep, rich woods. The ambroxan is probably what gives it a big scent bubble. You've got the vanilla that grounds it. You've got the fluffy cloud of marshmallow, and then the incredible florals. Very impressed with this new launch from K. Would highly recommend sampling this one if you like the sounds of the notes. Yeah, it's definitely a big love for me. Next up is the newest release from Sora Dora, and this one is called Red. I wasn't expecting this to come. I saw that they was teasing out another fragrance at Essence, so this one took me by surprise. It launches on the 8th of April. I don't know when this video is going to go out, but I'm just going to mention that here. And this is just incredible. My husband absolutely loves this too. I mostly love all of Sora Dora fragrances. I definitely get along with their DNA, and this one is no exception. It is slightly gourmand to me. I don't know if it's marketed as gourmand, but it's how it pulls to my nose. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Mandorle in a way. A slight bit of that DNA. It's got this kind of, how do I describe it? This sweet tonka bean, tahini, sesame vibe in the dry down. So delicious. But the notes are very different and it does perform differently too. But it's in that same kind of category, kind of warm, cozy, a little bit sexy. Totally unisex. I do have the notes for this one, so I'm going to read the notes out for you. This has bergamot, pink berries, cocoa, yellow tangerine, cardamom, jasmine, nutmeg, fig, solar flowers, iris clove, mugwort, sandalwood, white musk, caramel, and woods. I had to translate the notes from French to English, so hopefully those translated okay. But I pick up a kind of sweet sesame vibe in here. I don't know why. And it's really delicious. So if you have sampled Tonka Sesame by the Experimental Perfume Club, to me it gives off a slightly similar vibe to that. However, this one is a little bit more dense and sticky almost. I guess because it's got the caramel in here. This is so, so good. And I know a lot of you are going to love this one too. I just want to spray this one on my skin. You definitely get that nutty quality. What are those sweets called where they're crushed nuts with caramel or toffee? Or you can get those sesame seeds that have caramel over it. This is what it really reminds me of. It gives off the mandorle vibe because of the sweetness in here, but they don't smell the same. Do not get me wrong, they're not even similar in that way, but they give me similar vibes. You get that citrus. I don't get the fig so much, but I definitely get the nuts, as I've already mentioned. I get the caramel, I get the florals. But I get so much of that nutty quality, and it's sweet and it's decadent and it's definitely delicious. It's hard to compare this to anything in my collection other than Tonka Sesame, but they're not the same. As I mentioned, this one is more complex and it's more dense and sticky and a lot more gourmand. But this isn't necessarily overly edible too. Whilst it does have an edible quality about it, it is super wearable. The florals are prominent. It's got a really nice sweetness to it. Yeah, it's got a freshness in the opening. Yeah, really loving this new release from Sora Dora. I will talk about it in more detail. This is still a first impressions. I've only worn this once so far, but it's a big hit with both myself and my husband. And I just want to mention this. My husband is super picky. I, of course, have a lot of fragrances in my collection, and it's quite rare that he says that he loves something. He will often be like, yeah, that's nice. But in terms of what he loves in my collection, it's probably only maybe 20 out of 400, however many fragrances I have. So if you ever want to see a list on his favorites, please do let me know, because that could be quite interesting. But this is definitely one that he loves. So those are all of the fragrances that I wanted to showcase in today's video. Please do let me know if anything stood out to you. But what I want to know are, what are the newest fragrances that you've either added to your collection or that you've sampled that you're really loving at the moment? Please do let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you in a future video to come. Thank you so much and goodbye.